So today was supposed to be pajama day for Spirit Week, so I decided to still participate in that. Keep a little bit of normalcy. I know y'all are home. For those that are home, that are usually in class, just a quick update. I go through the video and I have you can pause in places to write things down. Make sure you're getting everything down in your notebook. I still want you to write this down in your notebook, just like you regularly would in class. So today we're going to talk about lesson 4.6, which is writing equations in slope-intercept form. This is a short section. There's not much to it, so after we go over this, I'm going to have you do a little bit of work on it, and you'll see that in your Google Classroom. But let's go ahead and jump into this section. So obviously we need to know, in order to write equations in slope-intercept form, we have to remember what slope-intercept form is. Okay, so again, I would pause the video if I were you, think about it, make sure you know yourself what slope-intercept form is. But y equals mx plus b, that is your slope-intercept form. Okay, and the two important parts of this equation is your m, which stands for slope, and your b, which stands for y-intercept. So slope and y-intercept, those are the two important things that go with this equation. So make sure you remember y equals mx plus b, and the two important parts of it, because those are what we'll need to use. Okay, so in this section, here's what we will be covering. So again, at home, I would pause this video, write this down, so then you can come back and listen to as I go over it. So sometimes they will give you a graph of a line, and you must use the information to write an equation in slope-intercept form that represents that line. So this is basically backwards of what we did in 4.4, where they gave us the equation in slope-intercept form, and we had to graph it. Now, they'll give us a graph, and we have to come up with the equation in slope-intercept form. In my slides, I give you points. So let me go ahead and jump into examples so you can see it. So I give you points, but the actual examples you'll see will be like graphs. So we're going to graph these and then come up with the equation. But again, the ones that you'll see will be the actual graph with the line, and then you have to come up with the equation. So take a second, write this down, because I'm going to move the camera over to the coordinate plane over here. So like I said, take yourself a second, write that down. I'm going to go ahead and move this over to the coordinate plane once you've got it down. Okay, so once you wrote that down, the first point was 0. We'll talk about number 1 first. The first point was 0, 5. So remember, first point is your x, so that means I don't move left or right, I stay here. And then 5 means I go up to 5. That's my first point. Then my next point is 2, 2, so I go right 2, up 2. That's my second point. All right, we will draw the line through this. So there's the line. Again, this will be like what they give you. They just give you the graph of the line, and they want you to come up with the equation. So they want us to come up with the equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So again, there's two important parts we need to fill in. The y and x, they stay put. They stay y and x. We need to fill in m, and we need to fill in b. So obviously b is usually the easiest thing to fill in first. So if we look, b stands for y-intercept. So you look at, in order to find your b, you go to the y-axis and say, where does that line cross the y-axis? And if you look, that crosses at 5. So therefore our y-intercept, what we fill in for b, would be 5. Okay, so that's pretty easy. The y-intercept, all you're looking at is that y-axis and seeing where it crosses through. Next, you do the slope. Okay, so slope, remember, is rise over run on a graph. So rise over run means I'm going to go from one point to the other and count how much I go up or down over how much I go left or right. So for this one, for example, I'm going to start here and my first movement should be up or down. So to get on the same plane or same level as this point, I need to go down. And I just count how many I'm going down. 1, 2, 3. So I went down 3, and remember if I'm going down 3, that is -3. So the top number in my slope, so m equals -3 would be my top number because that's my rise. I went down 3. And then I have to go right, which is positive, 1, 2. So that means my run on the bottom is 2. So there's my slope. -3 over 2 is what I fill in for m. So this is my final answer. Y equals -3/2 x plus 5. That equation represents this line. Okay, so that is what we're looking for when we do these types of problems. We're gonna take the graph and come up with the equation from that graph. So let's look at the second one. Gotta go over and get the eraser. All right, so that was the first one. Let's look at that second one. The second points are 3, -5. So right 3 down to -5, right there. And then 0, -1. 0, -1, right there. All right, so I'll draw my line through this. So now this is the graph, or this is the line we're going to come up with the equation for. Again, that's in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So the two things we need to find are our m and our b. So again, b is usually the easiest one to find. So to find it, b stands for y-intercept. So I go to the y-axis and see where my line goes through that y-axis. As you can see, that is at -1. So that means in place of b, I'm going to put -1. And that means if it's a negative number, you take the plus sign out as well, and you'll replace that with -1. So our b is now -1. Again, then we find the slope. To find slope, you do your rise over run, which we've discussed. So I'm going to go from this point to this point. To start, I'm going to go up or down, and obviously I need to go down to get on the same level as this. So that means I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So down is negative, so -4 is the top number, is my rise. So m equals -4 goes on top. And then to get to this point, I need to go right, 1, 2, 3. So that means right is positive, so right, +3. So therefore my m that I fill in is -4 over 3. -4 over 3. So there's my final answer. The equation for this line is y equals -4/3 x minus 1. So like I said, this is just taking what we've learned in 4.4 and doing it backwards. Now we are taking the graph, looking at the graph and making the equation instead of giving the equation and making the graph. Okay, so I'm not going to move you back over. I'm not going to move the camera back over. But I do want you to try one on your own. The points are 0, -3, and 3, 2. So like I said, this will already be graphed for you, so I'm going to go ahead and graph it. 0, -3 would be right here. 3, 2 would be right here. So this is the line I want you to try to make your equation in slope-intercept form for. Okay, so pause the video, try this on your own, and then come back and see if you did it correctly. Okay, so y equals mx plus b is what we're trying to get this line in that form. So again, easiest thing to start with would be my b, which stands for y-intercept. So b is my y-intercept, means I go to the y-axis and see where it crosses. And as you can see, that crosses at -3. So in place of b, I take out my plus sign and b and put in -3. So then I have to find my slope, which is m. M, again, stands for rise over run on a graph. So I'm going to start from this point and go to this point. First movement should be up or down. And in this one, it'll be up. And I count how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so up is positive, so my rise is +5. And then from there, I have to go right. 1, 2, 3. Right is also positive, so that is +3 on the bottom. So what I replace my m with is my slope of 5/3. The examples we went through haven't had any like this, but if you can reduce it, like say this is 6/3, you can reduce that to just 2. Say you get 2/4, you can reduce that to 1/2, 1/2. So look to make sure you can or can't reduce it first, because if you can reduce it, you do need to do that. But again, this will be my final answer. Y equals 5/3 x minus 3. We're taking that graph and coming up with the equation in slope-intercept form from that. Okay, so again, main points here is just making sure you can look at your graph, find your slope and y-intercept. Again, y-intercept is usually the easier one to plug in for b first, and then you want to find your slope by doing rise over run to plug in for m. Okay, so like I said, check your Google Classroom. We'll have some work on this to practice. Hopefully that was understandable and you're good to go for 4.6. Okay, thanks.